Bishop has been talking about the last couple weeks about Noah and the ark. And then you can refer to Hebrews chapter 11, where it goes down to the hall of faith, we call it. It talks about how Noah, and he talks about the story, the grace that Noah had, and how Noah built the ark when there hadn't even been anything called rain yet. And the Lord is telling him, do this, build the ark, and it's going to rain, and they put everybody, the animals, in the ark. And even though he had to do what the Lord told him to do, that's what God gave him the grace. Now, he looked like a fool. He was old in age, and it took a lot. But when you follow what the instructions that God gives you, you don't have to worry about it. So a lot of times we second guess God, and we try to tell God, well, shouldn't it go this way? Should I do it this way? That's not what he said. And so even though people will doubt you, and even though you may even have some doubt in your flesh, but when you follow the instructions of God, the ark will be built. Now look here at Matthew chapter 24. We're going to continue on that vein about the ark. And let's look at verse 35. Did you have to say, Heaven and earth will pass away, but my words shall not pass away. Verse 36, but of that day and hour knoweth no man, no, not the angels of heaven, but my Father only. But as the days of Noah were, so shall also the coming of the Son of Man be. For as in the days that were before the flood, they were eating and drinking, marrying and giving in marriage, until the day that Noah entered the ark, and knew not until the flood came and took them all away. So shall the coming of the Son of Man be. I want to share with you from the passage, say, neighbor, oh neighbor, get to the ark. Look at somebody else. Did you hear me? Get to the ark. Yes. We see here that this is Jesus talking, and he says here, as the days of Noah were, so shall also be the coming of man. This is talking about the certainty of Christ's return. The date is certain, Jesus began, but of that day and hour no man knoweth. No, not the angels, but only the Father knows when he shall return. And it's really critical because we don't hear a lot of messages about Jesus coming back much anymore. And we're so caught up in doing our works, which is fine. We're so caught up in, I got to get this, and setting our goals and reaching our goals, or failing and trying to reach the goal, till we don't forget he's coming back. And he's coming back soon. The date may not be revealed, but it's certain. The desolation is certain. The Lord continues to speak by the certainty of the desolation of that day. He says again, verse 37, but as the day of Noah were, so shall be the coming of the Son of Man be. For as in the days that were before the flood, they were eating and drinking, marrying and giving in marriage until the day Noah entered the ark. In both cases, the culture, just like now, the culture chose to ignore the warnings of the righteous. Rather than listen to Noah, they did eat and drink, and they married wives they were given in marriage. Rather than listen to Lot, they did eat and drink. In Luke 17:27 says they did eat, they drank, they bought, they sold, they planted, they builded. Luke 27:28. When the rain came, however, Noah's culture, the world was destroyed by water. Lot's was fire. Lot's house was fire with fire and brimstone. Hebrews says that, see that ye not refuse to him that speaketh. For if they escape not who refuse him that spake on earth, much more shall not we escape, if we turn away from him that speaketh from heaven. In other words, when you hear the man or woman of God, when you hear God speaking, don't turn away from it. Hear it and apply it and learn it And so it says here that when the Lord continues there, verse 40 in the Hebrews, that's in Hebrews 12, it says, then, or 40 of Matthew 24, excuse me, then shall there be two in the field. One shall be taken, and the other left. Two women shall be grinding in the mill. One shall be taken, and the other left. The picture is illustrated in Luke 16, where the Lord recounts the events surrounding the death and afterlife of two men. Lazarus, the beggar, died and was carried or taken by the angels to Abraham's bosom, while the rich man also died, and in hell he lifted up his eyes. Well, if God forbid, if you were to drop dead now, where would you end up? Now you say, well, we all sitting here in church, we all sitting here online, but you have to ask yourself that question. Because you have to realize there's a lot of folks sitting in church that say they're Christian, but they're not ready. Oh, it got quiet there. They're not ready. They look the part. They wear their cross. They have their Jesus fish on the back of their car. And they shout. They may dance. They may lift their hand. But are you ready for Jesus' return? And so we see here, the Lord illustrates a twofold duty, or twofold parables. Our twofold duty is simple: to be watchful and to be faithful. There was much of the disciples could not be certain, but there's one thing they could be certain, that they needed to be watchful and faithful, because Jesus said he was coming back. There ought not be a day that you go by that you don't think about the Lord's return. Be watchful. There are several occasions in the New Testament when the Lord's coming in judgment is likened to a thief. Look at 1 Thessalonians 5. You can write it down. 1 Thessalonians 5, verses 1 through 4 says, but of the times and seasons, brethren, ye have no need that I write unto you. For yourselves know perfectly that the day of the Lord so cometh as a thief in the night. For when they shall sell peace and safety, then sudden destruction come upon them, as a travail upon a woman with child, and they shall not escape. But ye, brethren, are not in darkness, that the day should overtake you as a thief. Anybody been robbed? Yes. You never really know that you're being robbed until they've already stolen. And more so than, or just as upsetting than whatever it is they stole, is the shock that you were robbed. You start saying, why didn't I see that? When did this happen? How did they do it? Well, that's the same way the Lord shall come back. Oh, wait a second. You know, they've been talking about that in church. I've been hearing that since I was a child in Sunday school. The Lord is coming back soon. And yeah. And then it happens and you're in shock. And so he says, like a thief in the night. Thieves always like to do stuff undercover. Thieves always like to do stuff when they can't be seen. And here's the thing, even Jesus doesn't know. He said only the Father knows. Peter expressed it in a similar way in 2 Peter 3 and 10. In a similar way, he said, but the day of the Lord will come as a thief in the night. John even recorded Jesus' words. If therefore thou shalt not watch, if you don't watch, I will come on thee as a thief. And thou shalt not know what hour I will come upon thee. This is Revelation 3 and 3. Again, behold, I come as a thief. Blessed is he that watcheth, who keepeth his garments, lest he walk naked, and they see his shame. So number one, you have to be watchful. Number two, you have to be what? Faithful. Faithful. The Lord speaks of a faithful and wise servant. The word wise means sensible or prudent. It is certain that we must always be ready to meet the Lord. 2 Corinthians 6:2 says, behold, now is the accepted time, but behold, now is the day of salvation. Let me go back here where it talks about where they say peace and safety. There's two things going on, whether you realize it or not. Number one, they're working on a peace agreement with Israel and the Palestinians, and they've been working on it for about a year. And they've already got it. They're just waiting to let everybody know and sign it. You know, they always fight over there and everything. But then last week, we moved our troops out of Syria. And then everybody got upset because the Kurds were left to fight for themselves, but they've been fighting since Bible times, you know. But here's the thing about it. Just today they announced that they signed a peace agreement. Turkey versus the Syrians, Kurds. A ceasefire, rather. So they announced that this afternoon. And so you must understand that that's good and all, but right when they begin to say peace, peace, peace is saying, oh, everything's fine. Don't you get because that means sudden destruction is about to come. And so you got to be watchful. You got to be watchful. Don't be sleeping, but you got to be faithful. It's certain that God requires us to be watchful and faithful. Look at Jesus. Jesus mentions complacency here in the scripture. Many people are complacent. Verse 38 and 39 says, for as in the days that were before the flood, they were eating and drinking and marrying and giving in marriage. And then they knew it not until the flood came. It caught them by surprise like a thief. So shall also be the coming of man. Elements that mark the last stage. Look, let's see if we can do a comparative analysis of where they were in Noah's time, where Jesus warned about then, and where we are now. Let's see. Let's talk about this. There was an acceleration of sinfulness. Does that sound like now? People are not even afraid to sin now. Now, but let's keep this in context. Sinners are supposed to sin. So we look down on them, but what about the Christians that sin? I'm talking about us. Used to be you sin, and Lord, the conviction and the whole just make you feel so bad. You just, oh Lord, you almost going to a prayer. Oh Lord, I can't believe it. Now folks, you say, yeah, I did it. But you better not say anything to me. And we have now gotten so comfortable. Oh, I'm going to turn the curve. We've got so comfortable now in the church with sin. Again, I'm not talking about the sinners. I'm talking about those where you know, neighbors going through. Come on. Sin is still sin. So there was an acceleration of sinfulness. Number one, a lack of spiritual separation. Watch this. Genesis 6 and 4. Look at that. Genesis 6 and 4 says, there were giants in the earth in those days. And also after that, when the sons of God came into the daughters of men, the same became mighty men which were old, men of renown. So the giants came in there to go after the daughters. The men came after the girls. And they bare children to them, and the same became mighty men which were old and men of renown. So a lack of spiritual separation. Number two, a lack of moral standards. Does that sound like us today? Genesis 6:5. It says, the next verse, and God saw the wickedness of man that was great in the earth, and that every imagination of the thoughts of his heart was only evil continually. My. The imagination. Sometimes you hear me pray, cast the devil out of the mind. Because your mind, they say your mind's a terrible thing to waste. Your mind can get you in a lot of trouble. You can be sitting right there, sitting right at home, don't go nowhere, don't nobody see you, but your mind can cause you to sin. Your imagination can get you in trouble. That's why the Bible says, casting down imagination. And every time thing that exalts itself against the Lord, you have to cast the devil out of your mind sometimes. Oh, bless his name. The wickedness of man was great in the earth, because if you conceive it in your mind and you don't get rid of it, the next thing is going to be in your hands. You start, the next thing you know, then you start thinking about it more. And next thing you know, you're actually committing the thing that you only thought of in your mind that you never thought that you never would do. There's a lot of people sitting in mental institutions. There's a lot of people sitting in prisons that have done stuff that they knew better. But their mind got them. And they did it, they're like, what did I just do? And so the lack of moral and the moral standards, and that every imagination of thoughts of his heart was only evil continually. And so what happens is, if you don't keep your mind under subjection, you start thinking all kind of stuff. Then you start justifying all kind of stuff. Then you start doing all kind of stuff. You don't just wake up and you just start doing something. No, that seed was planted in your mind. Put your hand on your head and say, Lord, touch my mind. But First Peter 1:16 says, because it is written, be ye holy, for I am holy. So there's an acceleration of sinfulness, a lack of spiritual separation, a lack of moral standards. There was also a lack of spiritual discernment. Spiritual discernment. There's some of you, not you, but your neighbor, that anybody can tell you anything and you believe it. Have no discernment. You see something, oh yeah, that must be it. You didn't have to discern anything. And what you must realize is that when you don't have discernment, you're in a place of being blinded. So that seed starts in your mind, but then you're blinded because, you know, some people say, yeah, listen, let me give you a little trick. Whatever your sin or sins were, we're going to say past tense. You always will have that proclivity unless you're delivered to sin that way. Okay? But because of what God delivered you from, you have a discernment, or you should, to see when somebody else is in that sin. Which means if you can see somebody else, you can see yourself. See, because what happens with discernment, see, if your issue was drinking liquor, well, you just lose control. If you know what it took you through, what the path that took you down, the destruction that caused, if it caused all that, you can look back and have discernment. It's not even really spiritual. It's called good sense. You know the stuff that you did. So now, if your thing was alcohol, and you're looking for a job, don't get a job at the ABC Liquor. Come on. That seed is already planted. You just try, but discernment said, no, I know I need a job, but that can't be it. Because God not going to test you like that. But when you have discernment, don't have discernment, okay, well, I do. And then next thing you know, 6 months, a year later, maybe the next day, well, I'm just going to have just a little bit. Discernment. It says in 2 Corinthians 4, in whom the God of this world, not God, Almighty God, the God of this world, has blinded the minds of them which believe not, lest the light of the glorious gospel of Christ, who is the image of God, should shine unto them. Joshua 24:15, you can just write this down. And if it seem evil unto you to serve the Lord, choose you this day whom you will serve. Whether the gods of your father that were on the other side of the flood, or the gods of the Amorites, in whose land you were there. But as for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. When you have discernment, you know how to stay out of trouble. Now watch it, because the Bible says he won't put more on you than you can bear. Sister, look at somebody and say, stop with the excuses. Now that may be something else that you tempted, but don't be talking about the same thing you've been dealing with 30 years now. I just didn't know. Yes, you did. And you got to be honest, because then you go to God, say, Lord, Jesus, Lord. Listen, no, you got to live, you have discernment. You can't do it. You may not be able to do what everybody else does. They can do it and God doesn't convict them. It's all right. You do it one time and uh-oh, you're in trouble. I had a preacher friend, and God, I hope he's not watching. You know, he had a moral failure, and there was a couple other pastors in the same area around the same time, had a moral failure, and it seemed like those other two pastors, they didn't initial it. And it just seemed like God just, boom, and brought the hatchet down on him. And he never really was able to recover like he wanted to. But he's looking at the other guy that did worse than him, and everything was just going wonderful. And I said, listen, you can't look at them. You can't look at them. You've got to know what God called you to do and what he holds you responsible for. And so we see here that you have to have discernment. And then Jesus also mentions a conclusion. Look at verse 42. He says, watch therefore, for you know not what the hour your Lord doth come. We got to be responsible. Watch. We got to be responsible. Then he says, but know this, that if the good man in the house had known in what watch the thief would come, he would have watched and would not have suffered his house to be broken up. If you knew a thief was coming, you turn on all the security cameras, have on the LED floodlights, motion sensor, be sitting up there with that Glock, say, come on, Cletus, come on. You'll walk up, but you're going to limp back. Some of y'all know what that's about. Yeah, so, but it's not that easy. A thief, watch it, a thief, and I ain't never been no thief, but you know, this is what I was told. A thief watches. He watches your patterns. He knows when you turn the lights off. He knows when you're home for good. The thief, he or she. That's right, man. It ain't just the thief knows when you're going to put the alarm. He knows, he's looked around the house. He knows if he got to cut the wires. We had a couple break-ins. This is how I noticed. We had a couple break-ins vandalism at the cemetery. Now, who's going to break into a cemetery? And so we had cameras, but they were just in the office part. And so we got them from the outside and everything, and motion detected, and we got LED. I put out all this kind of stuff. Yeah, let's do this. You know, I like technology. And so understand something now. If they walk on the grounds at night, we got them coming. If they go to the shed to break in, we got a camera right there. Then if you get the shed open, there's another camera there gonna get you like, hello. Big bright lights gonna come on. We can watch on the phone. Oh yeah, next time Bubba come, we got him. But we're prepared, but we still don't know when it's coming. So when I talked to the guy at the security company, I said, well, you know, Florida, that'd be a good time, but in the break-in if the power goes off. He said, I got something for you. We even got it to where if they cut the power, the security system battery operated. All right. Thank you. They don't know that. I guess they know now. But anyway. But listen, what I'm saying is, as much as we prepare, as much as any of us can look on our phone and see who's coming up, who's walking, we still don't know when the thief is coming. And that's just the same way that it is. We got to be responsive. We got to be responsible. And we also have to be ready. It says, therefore be ye also ready. For in such an hour as you think not, the Son of Man cometh. You must understand, my brothers and my sisters, the signs are already here. There are battles being fought all over the globe. Wars, proxy wars. There's religious wars. There's so many preachers and churches and all that kind of stuff fighting now. You don't know what's going on. Ethnic factions. Races rising up against one another. Racism to commit genocide. Famines have been and continue to sweep across the third world nations. as many people in the United States and in other parts of the world are going to bed hungry at night. And so we got earthquakes and other natural disasters that are more frequent. Pestilence and diseases that are resistant to drugs. Viruses that don't respond to treatment. Then things like chemical and biological warfare threaten to destroy people by the millions and are a constant topic of discussion and concern. Yes, we have false preachers, false religions, false prophets, false and self-proclaimed saviors abound as men and women try to gain power and influence over the lives of others. Christians are becoming more and more the target of all the world's religions as they attempt to lay the blame for fear and guilt upon the teachings of the truth of Christ's word. Sin has caused love to disappear as mothers kill their children. Children kill their parents. Turn them in for trying to discipline. Children, I'm going to call the police. Call them. Call them up and tell them what you want. If you're in my house, you may call them. I may go to jail. But when I get out, I'm going to get you. But this is what's happening. I got one witness right over there. But see, he had discernment. He never said that to me. He called Cheryl. My dad got in my face and jacked me up. She said, well, hey. Oh, I wasn't going to tell that, huh? Anyway, I'll tell all you this. Don't worry about it. Listen, it's so families have fallen apart because love has grown cold. And we're more concerned about what we want instead of what is right and good for everyone. Mothers are turning their kids out to fend for themselves as they chase after immorality that makes them feel good no matter what it takes. Fathers who refuse to accept their responsibility for their children they bring into this world, and who become effeminate and turn to homosexuality and perversiveness with those same children. Incest is heavy now. Pedophilia is heavy now. It's happening all over. Sex trafficking. In the midst of all this sin and corruption, they're still crying out, a voice crying out for man to turn back to God. But that voice is seldom heard anymore. If Brother Noah was here to say to us, get in the ark. Look at somebody say, get in the ark. Oh Lord, judgment is coming. Death lurks at your very doorstep and waits for no one. The flood tide of sin is rising. The rain of God's judgment is already falling and will soon become greater. Listen and obey, for there is little time left. Each passing generation since Noah has gone deeper into sin. Each passing generation looks upon the next to wonder just how bad can things get to, and man still survived. God has already promised that he would come back for a remnant, just like he did with Noah. Some have said they don't believe God would condemn every sinner to the lake of fire forever. Tell that to those who drowned in the flood. Every living soul except those 8 people that went with Noah died and went to hell. What makes us think that God's holiness and his justice won't do the same thing again? If Brother Noah were here and testified, he'd be shouting to the top of his lungs, repent, get ready, God's judgment is coming, and it won't be long. Don't wait, there's no promise of tomorrow. Jesus could return to catch away the remnant today. Then where will you be? You'll be left behind. Look at your neighbor and say, neighbor, get to the ark. Get to the ark. We don't have to drown in our sin. We don't have to spend eternity with those drowned victims of the flood in hell. We can accept the invitation into the ark of salvation. It's all right. Through Jesus Christ. We can enter in because the door is still open. But I fear the door is about to close. Once the lost soul, once the last soul has come in that Jesus knows will accept him, the door will close. And there'll be no more chance for salvation. All of us have to listen, hear, and obey the message of the gospel. There was only one door into Noah's Ark, and there's only one door into salvation today. Oh Lord, that door is Jesus Christ. He is the way, the truth, and the life. And no one can enter except through him. There is no life that is good enough. There is no sacrifice that we can make to pay the price. Jesus is the only way. And his blood is the sacrifice that is good enough. Give somebody a high five and tell them, get to the ark. Says, which sometime were disobedient, when once the long suffering of God waited in the days of Noah, while the ark was being prepared, wherein few, that is, 8 souls were saved by water. The like figure, whereunto even baptism doth always now save us, not the putting away of the filth of the flesh, the filth of our minds, the filth of our ways, oh Lord, but the answer of a good conscience towards God by the resurrection of Jesus Christ. There is a way to the ark of safety. There is a door into the kingdom of God. It's not only by having a good conscience, but it is having a clean heart. Say, Lord, create in me a clean heart and renew a right spirit in me. Yeah! You got to have a clean heart by believing in the death, the burial, and the resurrection of Jesus Christ. You got to be a part of the remnant, not part of the crowd that will suffer eternal death. Be a part of the remnant that will live eternally in heaven. You got to accept the Lord as your Savior. Surrender your heart to him. Repent of your sin today. Yes! Jesus will bring you in through his blood and make your life count for something good. Do it today. Get in the ark of safety, the ark of salvation, the ark of healing. Yeah. Oh Lord, will you be ready? Will you be ready when Jesus comes? I want to be ready. I want to be ready. I want to be ready. Love the Lord, 'cause he first loved me. Every pity, every wrong. Lord, as I live in trouble rise, I'm gonna hasten to his throne. Get into that, children. God bless your heart. I get ready to close. I wanna know, will you be ready when Jesus comes? Say yes! Say yes! Everybody stand. My time is gone. My time is gone. There's a song that says, my soul has been anchored in the Lord. Hallelujah. You don't have to sit in church acting like you're saved. You don't have to sit in church acting like you got it all together. You know if there's sin in your life, you got to get it right. It'd be a shame to spend all this time in church and go to hell. At least you're going to go to hell. Enjoy yourself. You in the church, acting a certain way, going home miserable, still carrying the weight of the sin. But you got to get to the ark. Every head bowed, every eye closed. Just begin to pray right there where you are. Though the storms keep on raging in my life, and sometimes it's hard to tell the night from day, still that hope that lies within is real.